Good morning. Oh my goodness. I am so excited about this next topic that we are going to cover. My name is Brandy Lloyd with Brandy Lloyd Personal Training and Holistic Nutrition. And I was just texting with one of my sons last night, and I'm still new at this podcasting and sharing information and educating people in this format of podcasting. So I said, I was thinking about, talking about dietary fat tomorrow, and I want to call it the big fat lie. And he says, sounds great. There's still a lot of confusion out there, so I am going for it. So I want you to hold on to your seats. I'm very, very passionate about this, and my information, because of my background and my own personal health and experience, is, without bragging, it's very deep. Listen to podcasts. I read a ton. There are books all over this house. I spend a lot of time looking at different blogs and PubMed research and meta-analysis research summarizations. And I have an ocean full of amazing information about dietary fat and how to put it all together. So imagine this ocean. I am going to try and limit myself to just dipping a toe in today, okay? We're just going to get kind of a flyover little intro talk, because I'm going to take a spin off of a lot of different things that are going to come up in here, and we're going to podcast on different things. So bear with me. I know I'm going to go too deep in some areas, so just hold on. But I'm going to go back about 60 years. That's where I'm going to start it, with a researcher named Ansel Keys. It was around 60 years ago that we were sold a lie, a big fat lie. The FDA proclaimed that dietary fat is the leading cause of heart disease. Cholesterol was a killer. And we were advised to eat egg whites, cut out beef and bacon and anything, quote, fatty. We want to be low fat. Well, what changed the FDA's mind? One study. I would love to say that it was more than that. But one study, one influential researcher, I think it was from Minnesota, don't quote me on that, but basically he looked at 22 different countries. But he didn't use 22 different countries. He did a little investigation of 22 countries and chose six countries, because they best supported his theory and his research, which is just the opposite of how you responsibly do research. If I have an idea or an opinion or a theory, like cholesterol was the leading the leading cause of heart disease, I need to do everything I can to prove myself wrong. What Keys did was he did everything he could to prove himself right. And he took this information, was a loud and powerful voice to our FDA, and they bought it hook, line, and sinker. Now, we did later, I want to say it was about 10 years ago, we did later, a group of scientists looked at the 22 countries as a whole that were originally chosen, and they had completely different results. But by that time, we are 10 years into this, and sadly, they were mocked and ridiculed. And I hope they're around today to get a little bit of like, I told you so, maybe, I don't know, or just to realize that we're trying to swing our country around. That's what I'm doing today. I am trying to be a voice of truth in a world of marketing. I'm not selling you anything right now. I am empowering you with education and information, and it is up to you whether or not you want to take it. I already mentioned that I do a lot of reading. I'm certified myself. I do a lot of studying, and I do my own mini forms of meta-analysis. That simply means that, let's say there's 100 research products or research experiments, say done on maybe coconut products. The adverse or good effects that maybe a coconut product could do for your health. By the way, coconuts are good for you. You could look at one project, 2 studies, 3 studies, whether clinical or observational or whatever. Or you could look at what is called a meta-analysis, which would look at all of them. There was 100 studies done. Let's look at 100 studies, study the study, what are the parameters, and summarize it. That's kind of what I do, right? I look at a lot of different information and I try and summarize it and make it palatable, understandable to my clients. Now, my clients I meet face-to-face, live in person, 99% of the time. There's only so many hours of the day. I'm new to podcasting and sharing information this way, so I, again, ask for you to kind of give me a little bit of grace. I do have an outline in front of me that I'm going to try and stick to, and I'm going to swing back around this. And so now that you understand how I'm getting my information, this isn't just my opinion. This is actually the opinions and summarization of people that are way smarter than I am. So what did we do as Americans when the FDA declared that we should no longer be eating dietary fat? We actually listened. We got on the low fat, low calorie because eating fat has a lot of calories. We jumped right on it, and you could do an economic study of that and see that what I'm speaking is absolutely true. They also created a whole new product line of various foods for us. In the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, the adults at the time, when they looked back at their grandparents either fed them or they themselves grew up with bacon and eggs and black coffee in the morning, right? Now, they started feeding themselves and their children oatmeal, whole grain oatmeal, fruit, toast, put that Smart Beat, Smart Balance butter on it, quote unquote, heart healthy. I myself, even as a professional, approved of my kids buying things like Cheerios because hello, it's heart healthy, it's whole grains, it's low fat, it's low calorie. Oh, the whole wheat craze and the whole grain understanding and the talks of fiber in the whole grains and what we consider whole grains is a whole separate podcast. So let's just agree that the food industry started coming up with pre-made, pre-packaged items, food bars, whatever it was for us, instant oatmeals. People started grabbing bagels and different things, trying to kind of carb load. We'll talk more a little bit about that. But no way, Jose, on the butter, no eggs, no bacon, right? Everybody wants to be heart healthy. And America's pocketbooks, where we were spending our money, tells that history very, very truthfully. Also, if you were to step aside for a second and look at agriculture, and what we were growing, the soybean, or we still are growing the soybeans, the corn, and all the glutinous and sugar filled. We had to do something with it. Now Americans are turning to some pre-made ideas. And so you can look at the packaged food industry and see just how toxic it is, from the growing it to the packaging. That's a whole other conversation that we'll get into. But the government actually pointed us in this direction because if Key's findings were true, then we should see a decrease in our heart disease, right? But we didn't. We actually have seen a dramatic increase in heart disease, obesity, and diabetes, just to name a few. Let me read you a list here of what has skyrocketed since this new eating style for us Americans. Cancer, dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, diabetes, obesity, strokes, heart disease, chronic illness, 1 in 2 Americans, people. Autoimmune disorders, I'm sitting here with fibro, fertility issues, ADD, ADHD, autism. I never knew an autistic kid, growing up in the 70s. And now everybody's on the spectrum. Anxiety, depression. These have all increased exponentially since the low-fat craze. Removing fats from our diets and replacing them with chemicals for flavor, for taste, for preservation, color, lots of sugars, real sugar, artificial sugar, whatever, sugary drinks. This has ruined us. We are sick and dying. We're projecting. I'm going to call them they, are projecting that this next generation will actually be the first generation that does not live longer than their parents. Oh, that's terribly sad. I'm sitting here with 2 grandsons in my life now. Oh my gosh. Industrialized food, processed food-like substances. I know I'm thinking Cheese Whiz. I don't know what you're thinking. I'm thinking macaroni and cheese that actually contains no cheese, right? Low-fat dressings, smart beat smart balance, canola oil diet drinks, trans fats, hydrogenated oils, fructose, corn syrups. Poison, 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 poison. This has created a systemic inflammation in our bodies, and we have broken body systems. I'm just going to talk about a couple, your hormones and your blood sugar balances. We stand on those. Those are our foundations, our hormones and our blood sugar. That's what runs us. And when they get wonky, everything gets wonky. Now, it wasn't just the exclusion or demonization of dietary fats that got us to where we are today. I'm just not going to cover those things in this podcast because remember, we're just dipping our toe in. But I'll mention them. GMO products, pesticides, the feedlots, where our beasts that we eat are held and what they are fed. Our environment, water or watershed, estrogenic products, our Tupperware and plastics that are around that are holding our foods. Stress. Oh my gosh, I know you're listening on your phone or something right now, but the digital stimulus. Another podcast about circadian rhythm, right? How our bodies kind of work with the earth, the movement of the earth, right? And the sun, day and night, dark light. Addictions on, pharmaceuticals or sugar or anything like digital addictions, alcohol addictions, sugar, right? Well, in 2015, the FDA decided that it would absolve the fat lie. Sorry, we were wrong. Dietary fat is now a healthy source of nutrition, says the FDA. And they are here to protect us. I get it. It takes them a long time to do stuff. But they are a business. Our government is a business. And there are a lot of chemicals that are frequently used in the United States that you don't find used against or given to other populations around the world. Another podcast, indeed. We will talk about that. I just said indeed. Crack myself up. So anyways, let's talk a little bit about fat metabolism or sugar metabolism. Just some basics. I know we've heard, I'm a fat burner, I'm a sugar burner. Okay, so for thousands of years, humans have been fat burners. Our bodies are intelligently designed, not only to fight inflammation, like we were talking about earlier, but also to not die at the slightest change in our environment, right? So for example, when it gets cold, what do? We shiver. And the shivering actually warms us up. What happens if I eat something that is toxic or inflammatory? My body attacks it. What happened? And it gets rid of it. It detoxes it, right? I might be bloated a little bit. I might have a little diarrhea. I might get a little fatigued or a headache. And typically we know, I ate something. I don't know what that was. But a well-functioning body will take that and remove it, and it'll be gone. Maybe an hour later, a couple hours later, that's it. What happens when we have systemic inflammation, and how do we get systemic inflammation? We flood our bodies with toxicity. I'm going to leave it at that. Whole other conversation about what leaky gut is and what that means. when our lining of our gut becomes perforated, when our small intestines are letting food particles and toxins into our bloodstream, and they're going